Welcome to Echoes of the Lost audiobook, where forgotten stories come to life. Dive into worlds of mystery, survival, and the unknown. If you enjoy our stories, don't forget to like and subscribe to stay updated with our latest audiobooks. Chap 35, Threshold of Energy. Ryder stood before the massive green gate, his hands tightening on his bag's edge, like a sailor facing a towering wave in the black night. The brilliant green light from the metal ring, tens of meters tall, bathed his face, sharpening his keen eyes as they tracked its pulsing rhythm. The deep thrum from below now filled the vast space, blending with the sharp whine of compressed air around the gate, like the breath of a living machine poised to act. Lena stood beside him, her steel rod firm in hand, her gaze locked on the gate's center, where the green light swirled faintly, a portal to the void. Torin supported Mira, the young girl leaning on her father, her breathing steady with the cloth over her nose, but her eyes wide with worry. Kalia stood behind, her broken wooden stick in hand, silent but tense, gray dust from the earlier gust still clinging to her clothes. The underground chamber felt cold and heavy, but retreat wasn't an option. This gate was the gateway to Archive, where truth waited on the other side. He slipped the Seraphim device from his bag, its red light pulsing evenly, the small screen glowing with the words, Archive, Ryder, Assembly Point reached. Phase 3 complete. Those words echoed in his mind, a whisper from a distant world tied to their fates. He opened his notebook, fingers brushing the page, writing slowly, Day 20 North, at Green Gate. Archive Phase 3 done, next step. He paused, eyes fixed on the screen, unease mingling with resolve. Phase 3 is complete, he murmured, voice low, blending with the gate's hum. But this isn't the end. Lena turned to him, her eyes glinting under the green light, a small flame refusing to fade in the dark. Where do you think this gate goes? She asked, her voice rough with cold air. It's shaking hard, like it wants to pull us in. She stepped closer, feeling the warm air wafting from it. Ryder nodded, studying the gate, noting the green light didn't just pulse, it swirled faintly, creating pressure around it. This isn't a normal gate, could be an energy portal, using electromagnetic force to open a path. He raised a hand, sensing the air trembling before him. Temperature rises near it, pressure drops, like a field pulling matter through. He wrote slowly, Energy Gate, Electromagnetic, Archive Entry. He turned to the group. Don't stand too close, we don't know how it works. Torin pulled Mira back, his cloudy eyes tense. It drags us through? He asked, voice deliberate. Like the machines at the outpost? Mira nodded, her gaze panicked. Kalia stepped up, standing by Ryder, eyeing the gate's center. Like a small black hole, she said, voice soft. Can we cross it? Ryder frowned, observing closer, seeing gray dust around the gate sucked into the center, vanishing in the green swirl. Not a black hole, an energy field, maybe instant transport or a bridge to another space. He edged nearer, feeling the vibration through his boots. The thrums from its core, like an engine on massive power. He faced the group. If we cross, be ready, we don't know what's beyond. Lena gripped her rod, eyes tense. Dangerous? She asked, watching the swirl quicken. What if it's a trap? Ryder analyzed slowly, noting the warm air and dust intake. Doesn't feel like a trap. If they wanted us dead, they wouldn't bring us here. It's an entry, but maybe unstable. He checked the device, its screen flaring, Archive, Ryder, crossed the gate. Phase 4 approaching. He murmured, Phase 4. He wrote, Phase 4, gate leads where? Suddenly, the gate shuddered hard, a hot gust blasting out, pushing the group back a few steps. The green light flared, the central swirl widening, emitting a high-pitched whine. Ryder shielded his face, shouting, "Hold on to each other." They linked hands, bracing against the pressure, gray dust swirling around. The gust stopped, the gate steadied, the green swirl glowing clearer, beckoning. Ryder panted, glancing at the group. "It's ready," he said, voice tense. "We have to cross." Torin held Mira, voice trembling. "I'm not sure," he said, eyes fearful. Kalia nodded, but stepped forward. "If you go, I go." Ryder met Lena's gaze, eyes blazing. "Through together?" Lena gripped his hand tighter, voice low. "Together." They stepped forward, the green light swallowing them, truth awaiting beyond the dark. Chap 36, Dead Lands Beyond the Gate. Ryder felt a surge of pressure as he stepped through the green gate, like being yanked through an invisible curtain, the air trembling fiercely around him before everything fell silent. He opened his eyes, hands gripping his bag, standing on cracked gray earth, not the gate's vivid green glow, but a murky sky thick with black clouds, letting only faint light seep through. The deep thrum from below was gone, replaced by the howl of wind cutting through scattered broken metal pillars, remnants of a world long collapsed. Lena stood beside him, her steel rod firm in hand, her gaze sweeping the desolate scene, her breathing quickened by the heavy air. Torin supported Mira, the young girl coughing faintly, hand on her chest, her breathing unsteady in this alien place, while Kalia stood behind, her broken wooden stick in hand, eyes wide at the lifeless expanse. They'd crossed the gate, but archive wasn't refuge, this was an apocalyptic wasteland, where life seemed erased. He slipped the Seraphim device from his bag, its red light pulsing weakly, the small screen showing a new message, "Archive, Ryder, Phase 4 begins. Survive to prove." Those words echoed in his mind, a whisper from a distant, colder world. He opened his notebook, fingers brushing the page, writing slowly, Day 21 North, past gate. Archive Phase 4, Dead Land? He paused, eyes locked on the screen, unease swelling. Survive to prove, he murmured, voice low, blending with the wind's wail. They want us to endure here. Lena turned to him, her eyes glinting in the dim light, a small flame clinging to life in the dark. "Where are we?" she asked, her voice rough with dry air. "No trees, no water, just dead ground." She knelt, touching the gray soil, feeling its stony hardness. Ryder nodded, scanning around, noting the air carried dust and a burnt metal scent, no signs of life, no grass, no insects, only the wind's lonely cry. The soil's heavily contaminated, maybe radiation or old chemicals. Air's dry, humidity near zero. He inhaled lightly, analyzing slowly. Sulfur and metal hints, like after a massive blast. This is Seraphim's doing, or something they made. He wrote slowly, dead soil, toxic air, Phase 4 survival test. He turned to the group. Cover your noses, don't breathe deep, this air's bad. Torin eased Mira onto a broken metal slab, his cloudy eyes on Ryder. No water anywhere, he said, voice deliberate. Mira needs rest, but this place, it's all dead. Mira coughed softly, clutching the cloth to her nose, her eyes weary. Kalia stepped forward, eyeing the ruined metal pillars. Like the outpost, but worse, she said, voice soft. Nothing could live here. Ryder frowned, crouching to inspect the soil, seeing it wasn't just dry but fractured, drained of life. This ground can't hold water, destroyed at its core. Maybe Seraphim made this for Phase 4, to test how we survive an endgame. He stood, gazing afar, spotting a faint structure on the horizon, machine or ruin, unclear. That might be a goal, but we need water and shelter first. Lena gripped her rod, eyes tense. No water, no food, how do we live? She asked, voice low. They want us dead? Ryder shook his head, analyzing. No, they want us to survive. That's the test. There's got to be a source somewhere, even if tiny. He checked the device, its screen flickering. Archive, Ryder, find control point. Phase 4 demands life. He murmured, control point. He wrote, Phase 4, seek life source. Suddenly, a fierce wind roared through, kicking up thick gray dust, clouding their sight. Ryder shielded his face, shouting, behind the pillars. The group ducked behind the broken metal, dust whipping past, leaving a thin layer on them. Dust storm, he said, voice tense. Common here, we need cover. Torin held Mira, voice trembling. This place kills, he said, eyes desperate. Kalia nodded, wiping dust from her eyes. Feels like the real end. Ryder met Lena's gaze, eyes blazing. We find the control point, there's a way to live. Lena took his hand, voice low. With you. They stepped through the dead land, wind howling behind, truth buried in the apocalyptic dark. Chap 37, Tracks in the Ashes. Ryder trudged slowly through the cracked gray land, his hands gripping his bag like a sailor clutching ropes in an endless storm. The murky sky, thick with black clouds, let only faint light filter through, illuminating scattered broken metal pillars, like the bones of a world long crumbled. The wind howled through the wreckage, carrying fine gray dust that coated his clothes in a thin layer of ash. Lena walked beside him, her steel rod firm in hand, her gaze sweeping the desolate expanse, her breathing slowed to cope with the harsh air. Torin supported Mira, the young girl taking heavy steps, her hand clutching the cloth over her nose, her breaths weakening in the brutal environment. Kalia trailed behind, her broken wooden stick in hand, her tense eyes scanning faint marks on the ground, seeking a shred of hope in the dead land. This was Archive's apocalyptic wasteland, where survival was the only test, and the control point, a distant goal they had to find. He slipped the Seraphim device from his bag, its red light pulsing faintly, the small screen showing, Archive, Ryder, find control point. Phase 4 demands life. Those words echoed in his mind, a cold whisper from an unseen force. He opened his notebook, fingers brushing the page, writing slowly, Day 22 North, Dead Land. Archive Phase 4, control point where? He paused, eyes locked on the screen, unease blending with resolve. There's got to be a life source, he murmured, voice low, mingling with the wind's wail. They didn't bring us here to die outright. Lena turned to him, her eyes glinting in the dim light, a small flame clinging to life amid the ashes. See anything? She asked, her voice rough with heavy air. This land's empty, but I spot something. She pointed ahead, where a faint groove cut through the gray soil, like an old wool track. Ryder nodded, stepping forward, crouching to examine the groove, noting its shallow but even path, as if made by something heavy not long ago. Tracks, vehicle or machine, he said, touching the soil, feeling the fine dust atop it. No strong wind lately, these are fresh. Someone, or something, passed through. He wrote slowly, track groove, recent activity, control point. He turned to the group. Follow this, it might lead to what we need. Torin steadied Mira, his cloudy eyes on the groove. Seraphim machines, he asked, voice deliberate. Or a trap? Mira coughed faintly, her gaze weary but following. Kalia stepped up, standing by Ryder, tracing the groove toward the horizon. "If it's a machine, did they leave anything?" she said, voice soft. "Water, or something livable?" Ryder frowned, looking closer, spotting faint green specks mixed in the gray dust around the groove, barely visible in the weak light. "Look," he said, picking up a speck, sniffing it. Metallic scent, but with a hint of dampness, maybe residue from chemicals, like nitrates or old stimulants. He analyzed slowly. If Seraphim machines left this, it could tie to the control point, where they keep a life source. He scribbled fast: green dust, chemical trace, life sign. Lena gripped her rod, eyes tense. "Life here?" she asked, voice low. "This land's dead." Ryder nodded, standing. "Not natural. If it's here, they made it, like a test. This track's our only lead." He checked the device, its screen flickering. "Archive, Ryder, proceed. Control point near." He murmured, "Near?" He wrote, "Control point along track." Suddenly, a sharp whine echoed from afar, not wind, but metal scraping, paired with a faint tremor underfoot. Ryder raised a hand, feeling the ground shake. "Machinery," he said, voice tense. "Coming, or just left?" He shouted, "Hide behind the pillar." The group ducked behind a broken metal slab, watching a small, blurry shape move on the horizon, vanishing into the dust. Torin held Mira, voice trembling. "They know we're here?" he asked, eyes fearful. Kalia nodded, her gaze fixed where the shape faded. "Like they're watching." Ryder met Lena's gaze, eyes blazing. "This track leads to the control point, we have to go." Lena took his hand, voice low. "Go, but careful." They followed the groove, dust wind at their backs, truth buried in the dead land.